and interdenominational, interdenomination, like the group I'm with. I went through minister classes now and all of that, and I do have God anointed upon me. But so far as I just studied the Bible. But a friend of mine said you need to quit telling folks that, because education and knowledge. This is what Pastor Dixon was told. He said you need to stop saying that, because education, where you get it at your house or Mo house. I've never been to Mo house, but there's some things that they teach in a way at Mo house I don't know, because I ain't been there. But you know what? I'll holler at you. You got all kinds. I'll holler at you about any knowledge I need about stuff that they teach. I mean, that's right. But what I'm trying to get, I'm just trying to get a point over to you all. Over to everyone. There's always somebody in the family you can lean on for that you don't have. And I didn't say this at the funeral, but I'm gonna say it right now, and I'm gonna push my mouth, because y'all want to know about the land, but y'all got me crunk up. It used to be, some of y'all done saw it when you walked through those doors. Mother had he was in this robe, had an evangelistic certificate or some type.
Yeah.
I asked her one day, we were coming back from church. She got to the point she arrived from church to church with me before I became the pastor over there and all. Different church would call. One day we was back. I was Mother, I said, you got that certificate. I ain't never heard you confess to the Lord calling you to preach. She looked at me. She said he didn't. She said when I finished that class, they got me up to do my message. She said I did one. She said God told me to go around and see about the sick. I said, well, what you go to school for then? She said I went to school so I would know when y'all mess up. She told me that too. No, that was her exact words. In other words, she went to school to learn all the proper procedures. All the proper procedures. And then if we erred, she could tell us. But thank God I did take a class in this program through Missionary Baptist, they call it the Cox program. And we had a class in pulpit ethics. And that's when I learned a little of what, other than that, all I know God had told me to preach, I can do it. Don't care what they think about it, but it's a certain way you have to present yourself. And that's what she's told me she went for, to make sure if we messed up, we would do it that way. Now that's more than about the land, but I wanna stop now. But I want y'all young guys, let that sink in your head. Don't let nothing mean more to you than keeping something that your grandparents worked and worked and worked, God knows how many days and nights and how hard for, that they wanted to stay in the family. And I'm gonna say this, and he didn't teach me to be racist, and I'm not meaning to be racist in this statement, because I've met plenty of white guys and white ladies that have helped me in my lifetime, and probably gonna be some more. But he did say these words. He said he did not want nobody white to own this place. And he wasn't being racist, because at the time, you couldn't get land. You couldn't get it in these parts. You couldn't get it. That's just the bottom line. It was the grace of God that it was a white family that sold this. And that was uncommon to take your workers off of your place. Me and you brother-in-law, now you need this man. What would I look like knocking you? Well, that's the kind of buddy system it was, and that's some of what it made it hard, because they had to raise cotton around here. They needed men working on these places as they could. And I hope that I hadn't said anything offensive to anyone, and I definitely don't want you to go around hating nobody, because that's the wrong attitude. That's the wrong attitude.
That's what you were saying with that. It's a reality of the world that we live in. And I say that because even today, depending on, and I know this for a fact, 30 years ago when I moved to Birmingham, I looked at a house, exact same house. One was built, they may not do this now, but at the time you would have communities that would build middle-class houses. You have basically certain parts they would start building buildings, and they would, I guess, marked to African Americans. You would have other neighborhoods built, and they were marked to Caucasians. I looked at the same house in both neighborhoods, and you're talking $10,000 and $20,000 difference. So I understand what he said down. I understand what he's saying. That's not a racist statement. That's a reality statement.
Yes.
And why I stopped and asked you all today, told you about to be sure that I hear what y'all saying about the state, about the county, about the county and taxes as opposed to the state, to check the state with that. Because one of the things that has happened in Alabama, and I do know this, when I first came to Alabama 30-some years ago, I used to work in social service, so I would come across a lot of that. Alabama has some strange laws about inheritance and all of that, and the laws are not consistent. You could have a law, sometimes it depends on when you bought your property and all that kind of stuff. It's very confusing. But the reason I brought that up is because Alabama, when we looked at it, had Alabama, a lot of land in this state, and I'm not saying other states, was originally owned by African American families. Somehow or other, they would get the taxes, because I don't know a lot about how they did it, use the taxes, whatever, and you're behind, blah, blah, blah. It goes up to auction, and your land and stuff is sold, and you don't even know about it. Now, and that is done.
They still take it.
Okay, so that is done by publishing it, but I go publish some little side newspaper that most people don't read.
If you don't keep checking on it, or you don't have somebody in your county courthouse.
My mom told me the story once, and she's dead now. You know, Linda's grandmother. What Miss Burt was her name?
Miss Tate.
You don't come out.
You're talking about Mr. Doge.
No, her grandmother.
Place, yeah.
Her grandmother. Okay, she said one time the taxi got behind. Somehow or other, nobody knew it, so she called her. Said, Lily, you know your family, y'all land is in the paper. And so that's how she found out. So she was able to go and to pay the taxes on the property.
Right.
So that's real. I mean, and I tell people this all the time. Racism was here when I came. Unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be here when I leave. I'm not the cause of it. And I tell my white sisters and brothers the same thing. You're not the cause of it necessarily, but we have to learn to live within that system. But it's an awareness that you have to have. And people will still do it. And the land is, Alabama is notorious for that. I mean, people have hundreds and hundreds of acres of land. Next thing they know, bam, the land is not theirs anymore.
It depends on the county from which you live.
I don't know how they know, but I know.
That I do know.
But I do know that.
That I do know depends on the county that you live in. You ain't safe in no county.
Right, but some are worse than others.
Thank you. Some counties are more low down than others.
Yeah.
Especially if you get in the court system.
So that was a legitimate question as to
Yeah.
what he was saying. I think I understand what he was saying with that. I don't hear in that hate all white people. I hate all this hate that. I don't hear that. But what I do say in that is be aware and be aware of what we realize it now as a system. But it was going on then, and we talk about it now in terms of, you know, the system we're in, and these are things that are in place. It's really challenging to change.
It tells us we got to work twice as hard and be twice as good. Now that's what I was brought up to be. Since you know, if you're gonna, most of y'all saw sports, you can beat the reps in the team if you good enough. You can do it. I saw it did. I done saw reps start off cheating in football and in basketball, but the other team was just so much good till they got tired of embarrassing themselves with bogus calls.
Okay.
It's possible. But you got to have that mind. I know I got to be twice as good and work twice as hard. So, and that's how you need to approach life. If you approach life like that and be able to adjust to the situation and to the condition, you always come out. We'll hear y'all here long enough, and I'm sweating. All right, we want the 8 to go inside where I can tell you all. Well, I know the 8 is not here. Right. I want to tell you all the final about everything. And we got